The chairman of the People's Democratic Party Governors Forum, Governor Bala Muhammed of Kogi State, has said that only the National Executive Council meeting or the Executive Committee of the PDP will decide whether to remove or retain Umar Damagum as the acting national chairperson of the party. Muhammad said the decision to appoint a new leader of the party will be determined by pending litigations and that the party is mindful of creating opportunities for factions. The governor disclosed this while addressing journalists after a meeting of the governors at the Akwa Ibom State Governor's Lodge, Asokoro, Abuja. Muhammad stressed the forum under his leadership will not tolerate any form of faction in the party. He assured that Thursday's meeting of the party's NEC will be conducted in line with the constitutional provision of the party.
The meeting reviewed recent developments in the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and urged the National Working Committee of the party to set in motion the machinery to conduct credible congresses in all the states where tenures of the party officers have expired. 2. The meeting noted that there are no factions in the PDP and everybody is working together united with all the stakeholders and all the organs of the party. 3. We equally want to use this opportunity to affirm that in Rivers State, the governors will work assiduously towards resolving all issues in the state with a view to uniting all the stakeholders. The PDP governors congratulate the host, our most respected Excellency Governor Umar Bassett Eno, for his hospitality in hosting the meeting.
In the meantime, some members of the Nigeria's ruling All Progressives Congress have accused the former governor of Kano State and leader of the new Nigeria People's Party, Rabiu Kwankwaso, of being behind the ordeal of the APC national chairman. Some of them, who were at the Kano State High Court to observe the arraignment of embattled national chairman of the Nigeria's ruling party, say the NNPP leader has lofty ambitions of defecting to the ruling APC in a bid to become its national chairman. Marvelous Obomanu tells us more.
The claim that the presidential candidate of the new Nigeria People's Party in the 2023 election is planning to join the ruling All Progressives Congress has been in the news for some time now. However, with the ordeal of the APC national chairman, which has pitched the Kano state government against him, leading to his arraignment, the rumors have once again resurfaced. This time, some party faithful who attended the court section say Ganduje's arraignment in court smacks of mischief and is evidence of underhand tactics by the national leader of the new Nigeria People's Party.
What I know is Kwankwaso is planning and Abba Yusuf to defect to APC in May. That is the reason why he's making all this unnecessary issue. Remember that Kwankwaso has been indicted during Shekarau administration. And we have that one. They have been to court. So we are going to prepare to take that issue, to take him to court again.
We are waiting for them to come to the APC. And they don't want to come to the APC and met Abdulwahab Muhammed as the chairman. So they are just doing this thing for nothing sake.
Meanwhile, the inability of the Kano state government to serve the charges on Ganduje stalled the much anticipated arraignment of the former governor.
At the proceeding, a little technical argument ensued between the sixth respondent and the prosecution, which is the government, wherein the sixth respondent so argued that the case in question is not a civil matter but a criminal case, and that the prosecution counsel ought to have served the notice of charge to all the respondents involved. After listening to their arguments, the trial judge then adjourned the case to 29th of April.
Because of the lack of service of the charge sheet on some of the defendants, the matter could not proceed. So we asked for adjournment, and the court granted our application to 29th day of April.
This case, the people that charge this case, they are not ready. They are not ready for the case. Because you cannot charge somebody and take him to the court and you do not serve him. By law, you cannot challenge somebody at the court, charging him in criminal charges, and you do not service and you want him to come to the court.
It is expected that after the notices have been served on all the 8 respondents, the defendants will be arraigned at the adjourned date, and the trial will then commence. In Kanu for News Central, Marvelous Obonman.
Let's also tell you that the National Working Committee of the ruling All Progressives Congress has reacted to the order of a Kogi State High Court which affirmed the suspension of its national chairman, Abdulwahab Muhammed, describing it as a nullity, unenforceable, and therefore cannot be obeyed. The development came on Wednesday as Ganduje received the APC ward executives from his Ganduje ward in Kano State who were at the National Secretariat of the party to affirm their confidence in him. Now, addressing the ward executives, Ganduje said those who purportedly suspended him were imposters. Meanwhile, National Legal Advisor of the party, Professor Abdulwahab Muhammed, said the Kano High Court order is not enforceable as it was obtained by fraud. He said the ward executives would petition the National Judicial Council to call the High Court's judge to order.
The history behind it is that the NMPP, they have noticed that since they came into office about 1 year now, they have committed so many mistakes, a lot of maladministration, and they have started seeing the writing on the wall that come 2027, they are doomed to fail as a political party and as a government. Kano State produced the highest votes for Mr. President to win the national election. Now the NMPP has decided to take these measures so that they can weaken the party and ensure that ensure that our president, Ashwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, does not get the anticipated landslide victory come 2027.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has threatened to escalate its pursuit of the immediate past governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, for alleged corruption charges. Despite Bello's evasion, the EFCC says it is determined to bring him to justice before the Federal High Court in Abuja. The agency's resolve intensified after Bello's legal counsel, Abdulwahab Muhammed, SAN, declined to accept legal documents on his client's behalf as the former governor remains elusive to EFCC operatives. Speaking before the Federal High Court in Abuja, the EFCC's legal team, led by Kemi Pinheiro, SAN, underscored their commitment to execute an arrest or the arrest warrant against Bello, even if it necessitates the use of force. Pinheiro emphasized that immunity extends only to individuals, not to physical locations, indicating a willingness to involve the military if necessary. Counsel to the embattled leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, has kicked against the continuation of the trial of the controversial leader over a lack of confidential access to their client. Now, this was as they appealed to President Bola Tinubu to compel security agencies to ensure that they play by the rules and ensure the judicial process stays its course without unnecessary interference with the process. Amadine Uyi reports.
It was another day in court for the embattled leader of the indigenous peoples of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. There was a high security presence at the court, as persons whose names were not on a written list were not allowed into the court premises. As the trial commenced before Justice Binta Nyako of the Federal High Court, counsel to the defense called for an adjournment of the trial, saying the Department of State Services has refused confidential access to their client.
The prosecution was forcing a situation on the court today that trial should continue or should proceed today. But our position was this, which comports with the law, that we have not had any opportunity. We have made this very clear. It is not about having access to our client. We do have access, but our access is monitored, hampered to the point that we are unable to discuss with him within that zone of confidentiality that is guaranteed between a lawyer and his client, and that enhances the defense we shall prepare to properly defend him against charges that carry the death penalty.
It's so painful that since 9 years, going on almost to 10 years, that we're still on the issue of giving him right to fair hearing. And I must salute the courage displayed by his lawyers in court today, because he wanted to force them into hearing and say you're going to rule on the issue of right to fair hearing. So when you rule on that, what happens to the trial that you have commenced? So it's very painful, and I see this is very unfair.
Though the prosecution counsel urged the court to dismiss the application on the grounds that the reasons given by the defense team were not tenable, the trial judge obliged their request, giving them about 10 minutes to consult with their clients. They urged government to allow the trial stay its course within the confines of the law.
At this juncture, I will continue to call on the president to exercise his constitutional power and then issue knowledge through the Attorney General so that we can bring this thing to an end and open the door for reconciliation and peace building in the Southeast.
The trial judge warned the defense counsels to take the trial seriously, or the trial will be adjourned indefinitely. She, however, obliged to their request and adjourned the trial to May the 20th. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, environmental experts in Nigeria have called for a more coordinated approach in tackling the nation's environmental challenges using certified professionals. This was during the inauguration of the Board of Environmental Professionals in the nation's capital, Abuja, where experts say more efforts must be put in place to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which seeks to mitigate the effects of climate change by the year 2030. Amadine Uyi reports.
It was a gathering of environmental professionals in Nigeria. Many of them here united in the quest to ensure a sustainable approach to protecting the nation's environment, say this has become apt in the face of climate change challenges and visible uncoordinated approach.
We are saying that the role of the ministry is greatly appreciated with regards to policy, regulatory, and enforcement, but the practitioners who carry out these functions also need to be properly certified so that the environment space will be sustained.
The primary mandate of the council is to join hands to protect the Nigerian environment. I will do this by regulating the activities of our members to provide good governance, stewardship, and environmental justice. And when we do this in accordance with the proper best practices and ethics, you can be rest assured that the Nigerian environment will be protected.
While the Institute of Environmental Practitioners inaugurated its governing body in Abuja, members of the institute said they clamor for professionals to manage the nation's environment with adequate certification will now be a thing of the past.
The institute is going to bring in a different approach, one that is indeed going to appreciate the inter, multi, and transdisciplinary nature of environment. Nobody is going to be excluded. However, there's going to be a process.
The emergence of this Institute of Environmental Practitioners of Nigeria is to bring sanity and sanctity in the practice of environmental protection, conservation, remediation, and restoration to the Nigerian environment. That is our sole mandate, and that is what we have come to do.
With this institute, driving the education, the knowledge of environmental practice in the country, I think Nigeria will begin to move faster towards more sustainable practices, climate issues that are currently on the front burner.
Environmental experts say with certified professionals now pushing the agenda for a more sustainable environment and effective measures to mitigate the effects of climate change on rural populace, there is hope for Nigeria to achieve its core objectives in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Thank you, Amadine, for that report. Now, over the past 6 years, Nigeria has witnessed a troubling trend in boat accidents with 1,204 lives lost between January 2018 and October 2023. And this is according to data collated by the International Center for Investigative Reporting. This means 17 people die monthly from boat mishaps when 1,204 is divided by the 70 months within the review period. Last week, another incident was reported of popular Nollywood actor Junior Pope Odonwodu, who tragically lost his life on his way to a movie shoot. Bettina Ngweli reports.
According to the International Center for Investigative Reporting, in the past 6 years, media reports have recorded boat accidents and casualties in 25 of Nigeria's 36 states. According to the online news reports, the top 10 affected states with the highest number of fatalities from boat mishaps between January 2018 and October 2023 are Niger, Kebbi, Kwara, Sokoto, Lagos, Anambra, Bauchi, Kano, Bayelsa, and Benue.
We ensure the make use of the life jacket before disembarking from our jetties, although there are some other unregistered jetties that people come out from, but from our own jetties or from the state or the national jetties and terminals, we don't allow that. And there's penalty for it without putting on a life jacket. We charge them as high as 50,000 per passenger.
The recurrence of this tragedy emphasizes the gravity of the situation. It is noteworthy that not only were lives lost, but properties and goods worth millions of naira perished in these accidents. Emergency services have attributed these accidents to factors like overcrowding, inadequate boat maintenance, reliance on aging vessels, and most especially, neglecting safety gear during water travel.
Now the question is, why do we need to buckle, to use the zip, and to use the rope? Now, the adjustable stripe that has this buckle is to hold on to the jacket in case you fall off, in case there's what we call man overboard, or your boat capsize and you are in the water. This adjustable stripe won't allow the jacket to go off your body. Then this zip also is to hold on to the jacket. The rope also to hold on. Now you are using these three safety devices because in case there's an emergency, don't ever enter the vessel without your life jacket. Put on your life jacket because the life jacket saves your life.
Nigeria's low life expectancy can be attributed to the nonchalant attitude of citizens to safety and security issues. A people who continue to treat life with such levity. Life jackets saves lives, as it is essentially the equivalent of a seatbelt in a car. In Lagos, for News Central, Bettina Ngweli.
Thank you for staying. Now today, Zimbabweans are joining hands in celebration of a significant milestone in the history, which is its 44th Independence Day. Now this day marks not just the end of colonial rule, but also the birth of a nation that has shown resilience, strength, and a rich culture. Zimbabweans across the globe use this day to reflect on their journey, their triumphs, and also challenges, and the hope for a better future for all. Now joining me on the news to discuss this is a political analyst, Alex Rusero. Hello, Alex. Thank you so much for joining me at this time.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
And congratulations to Zimbabwe on its 44th independence anniversary.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. So could you tell us what the significance of this 44th independence anniversary is in the current political context of the country?
I think history is history. History knows neither context or any circumstances. because whatever the circumstances and the context, one thing you cannot undo is history. And in this case is that 44 years ago, Zimbabwe attained statehood as a bona fide independent African state. So that alone is important, and that alone is critical for all Zimbabweans from all walks of life, because the independence project, midwifed by the process of nationalist politics, that started a century of sheer endurance, trying to dislodge colonial rule, finally came into fruition in 1980. So it's quite significant. It's quite significant, firstly, as a critical historical epoch of the country, but more importantly, as a reminder of how Zimbabwe came into being as a fully fledged state that it is today.
All right, Alex. Now, can you outline for us the major achievements and shortcomings that Zimbabwe has experienced since attaining, independence 44 years ago?
Yeah, the first achievement is that you reckon that less than 300,000 white settlers were in charge of a state in 1980 of a black populace about 10 million. So that was quite absurd. You have minority rule. So the project to dismantle minority rule, that on its own is an achievement. And the end of minority rule also came with the end of international isolation, because prior to 1980, a rogue regime led by Ian Smith was actually deemed illegal at an international and planetary scale. So between 1965 and 1980, Zimbabwe was presided over by an illegal regime, but which was de facto in charge of the state. So that end of international isolation marked the positive steps to also end the pariah status that Rhodesia had acclaimed. But you fast forward 44 years after, they have a lot of gains. You look at the attempt to also finish the unfinished business of the Lancaster, precisely issues to do with reclamation of land from the minority whites to the majority of the black indigenes, the indigenous people. That alone, you cannot take away that it is because of the independence project. But of course, in terms of shortcomings, Zimbabwe has also undergone its own veritable ruptures. You talk about the veritable meltdown of the economy, governance challenges, but critically, the issues of polarization, because Zimbabwe remains one of the states in Africa with a polarized populace, precisely because of a lack of convergence of what amounts to national consensus. That's why you even hear some quarters rubbishing this independence. So more than just the issues of a bereft of a national consciousness that the people should grapple with, there is a lot to do with polarity amongst Zimbabweans. And the independence project ought to finish by actually coming to terms with reality that we must end this kind of polarization, because polarization poisons a nation.
Of course.
And you also have another critical challenge, which is Western international community obsession with everything Zimbabwe. It's not helpful. It has not been helpful for the past 23 years. You have whole states, bigger states like the United States of America, fixed on a tiny state in Southern Africa called Zimbabwe, to the extent of enacting in their domestic laws a whole law with a name Zimbabwe in form of the Zimbabwe Democracy, Economic and Recovery Act, DERA, which was enacted on 21 December 2001. So that on its own tells you the extent at which Zimbabwe cannot navigate, cannot really derive the dividends of independence, because it is still grappling with the colonial matrices of power emanating from the Western international community. So in summary, these are the challenges that we have also witnessed 44 years down the independence lane.
All right, thank you, Alex. It's a good thing to know that, despite the challenges that Zimbabwe is actually facing, that they have the strength to be able to celebrate the 44th Independence Day and also to have hope for the future that Zimbabwe will become a better country in time to come. But thank you so much for joining me and also, sharing your thoughts on this.
Sure, thank you for having us. And 44 years reminds us that we can accomplish anything as we did in 1980. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. And hearty cheers once again.
Sure.
All right, away from that, scientists say the drought that pushed millions of people into hunger across southern Africa has been driven mostly by the El Nino weather pattern, not climate change. Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Malawi have declared a national disaster over the severe dry spell that started in January and has devastated the agricultural sector, decimating crops and pastures. Appealing for almost $900 million in aid this week, Zambia's President Hakainde Hichilema links the lack of rains to climate change. But scientists at the World Weather Attribution Research Group found global warming had little to do with it. Now, the South African cabinet has approved the final white paper on citizenship, immigration, and refugee protection. This is according to Home Affairs Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, who briefed the media on Wednesday. The final white paper makes radical proposals that the Citizenship Act, Immigration Act, and Refugees Act be amended. It also proposes that South Africa reconsiders its accession to the international treaties involving refugee protection. The minister also spoke on international agreements that South Africa is party to. He said the white paper seeks to open a path for the government to exercise its rights. This refers to its right to make reservations on some elements of the agreement. Now, to discuss this further, we are joined by Dr. Vusumuzi Sibanda, Chairperson, African Diaspora Forum. Hello, Doctor. Good evening. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Can't do anything.
Hello, Doctor. Can you hear me? All right, Doctor, please, can you give us a brief of your understanding of this white paper on citizenship and immigration? That's if you can hear me. All right, we'll take a quick break and try to reconnect with Dr. Sibanda. Do stay with us. Now let's move to other news from around the world, where Chief Operating Officer of Dubai Airport, Majid El-Jakar, has announced that Dubai International Airport will resume normal operations within 24 hours, signifying a return to its full capacity and regular schedule. According to El-Jakar, Terminal 1 and Terminal 3 have already begun gradual normalization, resulting in smoother movements. Emphasizing passenger safety as the top priority, he highlighted collaborative efforts among airport teams, partners, and airlines to ensure a swift return to normalcy and support affected travelers. Now, the hub has struggled to clear a backlog of flights in the aftermath of heavy rain that swamped the United Arab Emirates on Tuesday. Dubai, the Middle East's financial center, has been paralyzed by the torrential rain that caused floods across UAE and Bahrain and left 18 dead in Oman on April 14th and 15th. Joining us now to give us a bit more on this story is our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, the chaos in Dubai is continuing. Please, can you fill us in on the ongoing effects? Hello, Afia. Is it possible to unmute your mic? Well, we still can't hear you, Afia.
You know?
Oh yeah, I can hear you now.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Sorry about that. So as I was saying, Dubai Airport, like you mentioned, the second busiest airport in the world, second only to Atlanta Airport, is home to 80 million passengers a year. Now, that's been out of action since the beginning of this week. It should reopen within 24 hours. But at the peak of it not being operational, you had hundreds and hundreds of flights cancelled every single day in and out of that airport. Now, like you mentioned there, in Oman as well, you have had some serious disruption. More than 1,400 people evacuated shelters. Schools and government offices closed as a precaution. On Sunday, which is when this rainfall started, 10 school children aged between 10 and 15 and an adult were killed when their bus was swamped by flood water as they were attempting to drive through. 3 other children and the driver were rescued, and 2 of them were reportedly airlifted to safety. We know that a 70-year-old man as well was killed when he was in his car and his car was swept away by water. And part of the problem is Dubai doesn't get much rain at all during the year, around 8 millimeters in April. So the infrastructure doesn't have the capability to deal with this amount of water. They've had about a year and a half's worth of rain in one day. So the drainage system can't cope. There's nowhere for the water to go, which is why you have this incredible flooding all around the city, in the 7 sheikdoms, and of course at the airport.
All right, Afia, now there has been talks of cloud seeding as a possible cause for the flooding. For the sake of those who have no idea what it is, what is a cloud seeding practice?
And there's been a lot of talk about cloud seeding over the past 48 hours. Now, this is when chemicals are put into the atmosphere to basically generate rain. And in a place like Dubai, where it gets very, very dry, sometimes you need to be able to generate rain. And so chemicals, including silver oxide, are put up into the atmosphere, and this basically makes it rain. Now, there was a storm already predicted that was in the atmosphere, and it's thought that cloud seeding took place at the same time as that storm, which could be responsible for this deluge of rain. Remember, like I said, a year and a half's worth of rain in one day. And actually, the rain has kept falling. Rain was even falling yesterday and into today. So if you have the effects of cloud seeding, to increase rainfall, as well as a storm being in the atmosphere already, then yes, you will have this situation where you have these torrential rain.
All right, now there has also been flooding in Pakistan and the surrounding areas. What's the situation there?
Absolutely. Now, Punjab, which is one of the biggest and most populated areas of Pakistan, has had the highest death toll so far, with 21 people killed by flooding and lightning between Friday and Sunday. 8 killed, another coastal province there as well. An extensive flooding across Pakistan and into Afghanistan as well, where at least 33 people have been killed and hundreds of homes damaged and destroyed. Now, Pakistan saw huge floods in 2022, and it's likely that global warming and climate change played a huge part in those unprecedented events. You had parts of the country completely submerged by flooding. More than 1,700 people were killed in these floods in 2022. Landslides and flash floods as well happened in 2022. We have a risk of them now as well. And you have had crippling heat waves in India and Pakistan as well, which have been caused by global warming. And it shows you that global warming and climate change is not one thing or the other. It's not rain or heat. In the case of Pakistan, it's both.
All right, well, thank you so much, Afia, for bringing us the update on this story. Now let's take a look at business, where the real estate market is currently hit by unexpected quick rise in exchange rates, foreign exchange issues, increase in production costs, soaring cost of materials, and a significant decrease in housing affordability conditions. Not surprising, the impact of forex rates on the economy is showing lapses in sensitive areas in the building sector, as prices of houses have continued to rise astronomically to erode investors and home builders' confidence. Stakeholders have been called on, or they've called on the federal government to firm up its economic policies. Speaking on the sidelines of an annual general meeting, property expert Uzoamaka Oshogwe said despite 150% increase in total revenue, 76% growth in total assets and 343.5 million naira dividend payout, the persistent rise in exchange rates is impacting negatively in the construction business sector.
We all know what the country is like. It's been quite challenging, but then in every area where you find challenges, you also look for opportunities. You know, in every tough time, there's also soft landing somewhere. So it's for you to do your research and ensure that you're able to tap the market no matter what. Yeah, like you said, the economy is hard, but then we're developing. But then it's being intentional.
The challenges are there, but I want to say whenever there are challenges, that's also when there are ways in which you can also succeed. You must have to live with those challenges and what you do have to do better, you know, to surmount that. For the housing sector, a lot is required really, you know, from the government. For example, let me just say the issue of the increasing volatility in prices of products.
Now in the world of sports, Owerri is buzzing with anticipation as the Heartland Football Club prepares for their upcoming home match at the Dan Anyam Stadium, marking their return after the Nigeria Premier Football League imposed a ban on stadium usage back in January. The ban, which also impacted Abia Warriors per NPFL regulations, stemmed from the poor condition of the playing pitches. In an official statement shared on the club's football page, it was announced that following a series of inspections conducted by the NPFL board, the club has been given the green light to host their next home fixture at the stadium. Bafana striker Percy Tau is in line to become the highest paid African-based player should he agree to a new contract with the Egyptian Premier League powerhouse Al Ahly. Tau made the move to the African champions a few years ago from Brighton Hove Albion in the English Premier League. His presence in the Egyptian team has significantly contributed to their success, notably leading them to victory in the 2023 African Champions League. Recent reports from Egypt reveal that Al Ahly's management has proposed a new contract for Tau, extending until 2028 and offering substantial salary increases. Under the terms, Tau would earn $1.6 million annually in 2028, $1.4 million in 2027, and $1.2 million in 2026. And that's it on the news this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our top stories. We told you that former Kogi State Governor absent as court adjourns arraignment. We also told you that El Nino triggers drought and food crisis for millions in Malawi. And finally, you heard that Zimbabwe celebrates 44th independence anniversary. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.